Hi, I'm Perry. You might know me from How Do You Do? I ask a lot of questions, so Talon gave me a spin-off in order to satisfy my curiosity. And I'm using it to get to know our community on a deeper level. It's FaceTime with Perry Winkle, and today's guest, Dmae Lo Roberts. Hiya, Dmae.
Hi, Perry.
About our guest. Dmae Lo Roberts is a podcast host, the executive producer of Media Rights, a biracial Taiwanese-American, and a Peabody Award winner for her audio docuplay, Dmae, A Daughter's Song. Her plays have been produced all over the country, and today she's talking to us about her journey as a writer, plus she's gonna help us write too.
So happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. All right, let's get into it. You're a playwright, so my first question is, how do you write a play?
Well, most of my playwriting was earlier on, but I think the main key to writing, because I also, write personal essays as well as, just other kinds of writing that I like to do, like monologues and that kind of thing. But I think that in film scripts, the main thing is to give yourself lots of time alone. And, right now, that's probably not as hard to do as it might have been maybe a year and a half ago. But that is the key, is just giving yourself some space and not judging yourself. So I like to do a lot of free writing. I find that you often start writing things that you never even dreamed of, So let the characters direct you to where you want to go in the story. A lot of people think that they have to plan it all out. And because they think they have to plan it all out, it rarely gets on the page, And sometimes I like to think about things and make stuff up. That's what I call writing, making stuff up in my head. And I go, oh, wouldn't it be great to have this character? Or wouldn't it be great to be able to say this? Or write this kind of a poem, because of what I'm seeing right now. And then just giving yourself the space and the non-judgment to just put it down on paper or on your phone or on your laptop, whatever you have. And sometimes I didn't have paper, so I do have the original napkins that I wrote on too, at the restaurants and the coffee shops, because sometimes you get an idea and you just want to write a couple of lines.
Writing on a napkin, that's genius. All right, next question. Where did you grow up and how did that influence your writing?
Well, I was actually born overseas in Taiwan. I'm biracial Asian American, and my family moved to Japan. My dad was in the military, and then we moved. Basically, when we came to the States, when I was 8, we moved to Reno, Nevada, then Boise, Idaho, and then Eugene, Oregon, and then every year we moved. And then so we moved to this small town called Junction City, Oregon, which is outside of Eugene. And it still is the home of the Scandinavian Festival. And we were the only interracial family that the town had ever seen. And so we felt a lot of isolation, a lot of ostracism there. My brother especially, who looked more Asian than me, was bullied, through his whole from 3rd grade on to high school, and it still affected him. And so 2 things happened there. I found that I really wanted to express myself artistically as a way of survival, but I also witnessed my brother, as the brunt of racism there. And so 2 things shaped me: my wanting to express myself artistically, either through writing or through acting or anything, really, and then being committed to anti-racism, which has been throughout my entire career as a writer, radio producer, theater director, theater artist. We were living outside in the country, so I would find myself, isolated from not just the outside world, but also from, trying to find space in my family, because we were in a very small farmhouse. And so I would sit in my room when I had a chance. My mom could be very intrusive, maybe you could relate to that, no boundaries, just walk into the room kind of, anytime she felt like it. And so I, really needed that space. And I think a lot of young people could relate to that. You really just need your own space so much. I would write scripts to my favorite TV shows. And so I'm older than you, but it would be like Star Trek and this show called Kung Fu, the original, where David Carradine actually played a biracial Chinese person, but those were my role models racially. I had Spock, who was half Vulcan and half human, and I had David Carradine, of all people, who he was white, but he played that character. And so I would write myself in as a biracial Asian into those scripts, like I was Spock's sister, and that kind of thing. And so that's when I started, thinking about writing plays. My dad gave me this old volume of plays that had like The Glass Menagerie, Tennessee Williams, and Eugene O'Neill plays, Iceman Cometh, I think it was, and Anna Christie. I read these plays out loud to myself, and I would perform all the roles. We had no drama programs, so people at Northwest Children's Theater are very lucky, that they can have an outlet to be able to express themselves, because sometimes you just want to get out of your own world and enter another world so that you can actually learn more about yourself by entering that world. So that's what I did. And eventually, I went to college and was able to do this with other people. And then I also in college learned how to do radio. So, that also taught me, to work independently and produce radio programs, documentaries, radio theater, on a national level. So all of that was good. So, things come to you when you're ready for it. I really believe that.
So we talked about how to write, but let's talk about why to write. How can writing make a difference?
Well, see, I have never called myself an activist, right? I always say I'm an artist, I'm a journalist, or I'm a writer, that's what I am. But I feel like through the years, I've realized that has been my social activism. I'm not somebody who feels safe going to protests, I just physically, don't feel strong enough to do that. But I also, I'm not a politician. I would not have the temperament for that. There are a lot of things that I'm not, but what I can do is to somehow make the world just a tiny bit better if I can, right? Using my talent, using my art, using, my voice. If I can make the world just change just a tiny bit, I feel like then there's a purpose to the art. And sometimes art doesn't need that kind of a purpose, but for me it does. If you can change just a few people every once in a while, I think that helps somehow. And it helps change you too, because we all have personal work that we need to. And I'm always wondering how I can be a better person, because I'm not a perfect person by any means. And I do make a ton of mistakes. I try to learn. And that's all we can ever ask from people. Can you learn from your mistakes, right? And racism is a huge mistake. There are things that we can highlight, in our own lives and other people's lives to try to do something about it. Not everybody has to do this, but I honestly think that unless we somehow find something outside of ourselves while we're using our talents, I just don't see how things can change and how life will improve.
Well, I think you've just inspired a lot of people to take up writing to help change the world. So, what advice do you have for new writers or artists trying to get started?
Well, I touched upon two things: giving yourself the space to be able to do something with your talent. The other thing is to let go of that judgment. I think we edit before we are ready to edit, and I feel that I am my harshest critic. I'm very judgmental about myself. Sometimes that transfers to other people too, and I have been told that you are so judgmental. And I think maybe it's because my mom was so critical as an Asian mom, and there's a lot of cultural reasons for that. It isn't just being mean or anything like that. There was a lot of cultural reasons for that. But let go of that criticism for yourself. Try to say, think about who your best teacher was and try to be that person yourself so that you have permission to try different things and to make mistakes. So I guess that's number 3. Try, make mistakes, learn from them, try again. Read it out loud. When you read it out loud, there are several things that happen. First off, you do find some grammatical mistakes, right? There's some incomplete words. I do that a lot when I'm writing because I'll think I have written that word in there and it's not in there. So reading it out loud really helps. But also reading it out loud gives power to your writing. Oh, and it's okay to say, wow, that line was really good. It's okay to say that, right? And that's not like you have a huge ego. So what's wrong with having a huge ego? That's what I think, It's like we put each other down so much now. There's so much negativity and people are not feeling very good about themselves. Sometimes it's okay to give yourself compliments, quite often, and to tell yourself you're doing okay. And remember that the negative comment that you might hear today will not have any meaning a month from now because something else will happen. So just dispel it. Dispel those evil spirits, and just think about just being able to read it to somebody else. A lot of times we're really shy about reading it to somebody else or sending it to somebody to read, right? But until you do, you don't really know the power of what you've written. There's a thing called constructive criticism. There's also destructive criticism. Learn the difference between the two. Sometimes people just want to tear people down and that's destructive. Sometimes people are constructive and they'll say, if you did this one little thing, you would make that line sing. Or put yourself more in this section and then we learn more about what you're trying to tell us. Or describe this one little thing. So that's constructive criticism, and that will help the work that you're trying to do and give power to the work that you're trying to do. And, and good writing will move another person. So that's what I mean about making something just a little bit better, because good writing, once you've worked on it and given it to somebody to read and they go, oh, then something happened. Then you did something that changed them somehow.
So I heard that you are working on something pretty cool right now. Want to tell us what it is?
During the pandemic, I had a lot of family friends. I don't have children myself, but I had a lot of family friends tell me how tough it's been for young people. And the isolation wasn't good, for a lot of young people. And I know what it feels like to be isolated and not feel like you have a lot of friends or friend contact. There's a lot that we can learn from young people about what this experience of the pandemic has been like for them and what it still is like. And I'm also worried about everyone's mental health. That was the number one concern from people that I talked to who had young people in their home, that mental health issues are still not talked about enough. It's like somehow they're negative when everybody is dealing with it, especially now, everybody is dealing with it. My organization, Media Rights, we're a nonprofit organization, and we do mostly multicultural productions and many media. And so we want to publish an ebook and a podcast called the ISM Youth Files. The ISM project was something that I started about 4 years ago. It was a series of stage monologues that address race, orientation, national origin, and gender. We were going to tour it right before the pandemic and everything shut down. And I turned them into a series of short films instead. But now I'm thinking, let's focus on youth creativity and the relationship to mental health. And so we're taking submissions, and we will be paying $300 for short monologues and essays, and probably $100 or so for short poems. We're taking at least 15 submissions. We might be doing more. So your odds are pretty good, actually, to get in this. And so we're hoping to launch it in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also Asian American Pacific Islander Month, too. We're actually reaching out to BIPOC kids, but also kids with disabilities. And sometimes, some folks might say, well, what am I going to do? I'm white, and I don't know if I should enter this. I was thinking there's such a thing as partnerships too. You could always partner with a BIPOC person or a person with disability. I promise you, anybody who submits will get a personal response from me. I commit to that.
All right. No pun intended, but it's writing time. So grab whatever you're going to write with, come back, and join us for a little writing exercise. Dmae?
So you remember I talked about, providing a space for yourself, right? And no judgment. The actors out there will relate to this, the theater artists. Your director might have you do, or your teacher might have you do some visualization, right? And so you just visualize it, and you don't necessarily put it down on paper. So I'm thinking, why don't we combine theater with writing and visualize it, but also write it down? Are you guys ready? Perry, are you ready? So think of a memory, one event or a time where you had a realization of something. It could be anything, so don't judge, just whatever pops in your head. Now you're thinking about the realization when you first experienced something. What was the weather like at that time? Were you hot or cold? What was the weather like? Just describe it. What colors were around you? What did you see, and what were those colors? So explore the scene in your memory. Is there anything that you can touch? Is there anything that is out there that you can feel? What does it feel like? What is the texture? Was it noisy or quiet? And what sounds did you hear? Can you hear anything else? Can anyone else hear them with you? Who was with you? How old or how young were they? What were they doing at the time? Do you smell anything in the air? Was there sort of a salty smell? Was there sort of like a minty smell or a pine smell? What were you smelling? What are you feeling emotionally? And where do you feel it in your body? Is it a pleasant or a painful feeling? If pleasant, how can you make the feeling last? Imagine a way to hold on to it and put it into an object that's beautiful or meaningful. It could be something that you wear. It could be something that is hanging somewhere or on a shelf or on a tree or a rock. What does that object look like? Now, if it's a painful memory, what does it take to get rid of that feeling? So imagine something physical that takes the feeling from you, like you can put it in something, and then release it. What does that look like to you? One last thing. Now, you've written a response to these series of questions. So I would like you to just take a look at it. Read it over in your notes. Now, is there something that you can put, that you can piece together, that you can put into a scene or a story or a monologue or a personal essay or draw a picture of? It could be anything. So look at what you've got. And sometimes, if you have these different paragraphs, just number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And not in the way of importance, but more in the way of beginning, middle, and end. And see if there is something like that. That's it. That's writing.
Oh yeah, hey, there's some good stuff here. Look at that. I'm a writer, and I didn't even know it. Dmae, thank you so much for sharing your journey and doing that writing exercise with us. I can't wait to see what people come up with.
Thank you, Perry. It was great spending some time with you, and I really think that the work that you're doing is really important, and I hope that we, get to see each other, and I'm looking forward to more stuff from your interviews. So thank you for this time.
Aw, thank you.
And I encourage everybody to go to mediarights.org, and send your work in for the ISM project, ISM Youth Files project. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the kind words. I'll see you soon. Bye, Dmae.
Bye.
You can learn more about Dmae and find her work at dmaeroberts.com. You can submit to the ISM Youth Files project at mediarights.org, and you can write on just about anything. So get writing, and we'll see you next time on FaceTime with Perry Winkle.